Welcome to SoberSmash. SoberSmash. Get to the core issues with King Scott and Dr. Joe and get SoberSmashed.
And welcome to SoberSmash Live. Today our special guest is the Love Biologist, Dawn Masler. And now your host with the most, it's King Scott.
Hey, Dawn, how are you? Welcome to the show today. Glad you're in here. We've been hearing a lot about you in the industry and a lot of love in the air.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So tell us a little about yourself, something we need to know about you right off the bat.
All right. Well, I'm a biologist, and I've been in recovery for 28 years. And I started writing about love because I was one of those women that were attracted to the wrong men. So you probably are familiar with us.
Wow.
That's an assumption right there, I'm telling you.
Wow.
If you're in recovery, you know who I am.
Wow. I might have been one of those bad guys. I don't know.
Probably. But
So you made some sort of jump there because you were in biology before you started writing, correct?
yes.
And somehow you married the two, love and biology, into some sort of
When
path for yourself.
When I first moved down here, I got a job at Broward teaching biology, and I was finding myself attracted to the bad boy biker in the band. So during the day, I'm teaching, and at night, I'm like following this band around.
All goes back to the musicians. That's what it is. All goes back to the guys in the band.
It's the biker thing too. Yeah, but yeah, I had both afflictions.
We're in trouble. You're a musician. I'm
I'll
a
tell
biker.
you,
That's
I'll
not good.
So are you single? So what I was, during the day, I'm trying to like stay awake and teach my classes, and at
Right.
night I'm following around this band, and it would have worked out fine if he had married somebody else. So when
That's always a problem.
yeah, exactly. And when I had my heart broken a couple more times, I realized maybe I was the common denominator. And I realized that maybe I needed to do some work on myself instead of chasing after these unavailable people. And it turns out that that's my pattern because it's based on family dynamics, as we all know, that usually traces back to. And I did some work. And one of the things I had neglected in my recovery, I had like 17 years of recovery at the time, I had neglected prayer and meditation. Not really prayer, but mostly meditation. So I started doing meditation, and all these thoughts of nobody loves you kept coming up. And it was, I'd go to meditate and I'd start crying, and it's like, nobody loves you, nobody wants you. And I was seeing a therapist, and I told her what happened. She goes, well, what do you think it's coming from? I said, well, I kind of felt like I wasn't wanted as a child. And she says, well, maybe you should ask your mother. So my mother had been coming for a visit. God has a great sense of humor. And I sat her down and I said, every time I go to meditate, it feels like I wasn't wanted as a child. And she said, yeah, that was probably true. And
Wow.
And when
That's pretty deep.
Yeah. When she said that, it was like, wow, like stabbed me in the heart. But
Yeah. Happy Mother's Day.
exactly. Yay. Now I'm cured. But it was actually a real gift, because if she said, no, you're crazy, I would have stayed crazy.
Sure.
But because she said yes, she validated my feelings, and then I was able to look at it, accept it, and let it go.
You had closure.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
And it broke that attraction, or at least to the bad boy biker, to the completely unavailable, and it was able for me to grow from there. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up writing the book, is because I started talking to other women, and they had the same problems. And I'm like, wait, I think I can
Now,
help
which book
you.
are we speaking of? I know you've written 2 books that I'm aware of.
The Broken Picker Fixer was my original
Broken
one.
Picker Fixer.
Yeah.
Okay. Explain that title.
Broken Picker is for women that are attracted to the wrong men and women that are attracted to the wrong people.
Okay.
The wrong people for them.
Yeah, so let's clarify that. That's definitely, this works both ways. I know you spend a lot of time with a bad boy, but we also pick the wrong women too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this can work both ways.
You guys tend to try to pick the women they can save, the damsel in distress. Most of the men that I've talked to and worked with, it's like that they'll rescue, and it's like, if I rescue you and save you, you'll love me forever, right?
Do you think more women pick the wrong men, or more men pick the wrong women?
Well, I don't know if there's a percentage wise. I think there's a lot of wounded people out there that could use some work on themselves, and that they try to get into relationships and it ends
Right.
up having problems and dragging other people along and taking hostages, as we like to call it.
Do you think that also ties into addiction by picking the wrong mate?
Well, it does, because it's basically it's your broken piece that's picking. It's the
Right.
broken part of you that's picking.
So your perception is off.
Exactly. Of course. I mean, it's our thinking.
Yeah.
Our problem lies in our thinking. But I discovered when I wrote the second book, Men Chase, Women Choose, it's about the neuroscience, because I'm a biologist. I discovered that when you fall in love, strange things happen to your brain. And one of the things that happens is that parts of your brain deactivate. And we see a similar deactivation when you fall in love as we do when you use cocaine and
Right.
alcohol. So I think a lot of people in recovery like to jump into relationships, like to jump into try to fall in love as a way to continue to shut down that brain, because that's what the effect that it has.
Wow, that's. I was just kind of following along with that, but
I'm just thinking about all the cocaine and alcohol I had in my life that I fell in love so many times.
that was one of the things is, I don't want to get stuck on, because there's really not a wrong person; it's our wrong choices. So, when you say you picked the wrong guy, there's nothing wrong with that guy.
No.
But
It's the wrong
not
person
right for you, because, and I gotta believe you have to understand yourself before you can do any of this stuff. Is that correct?
Correct. And what you end up doing, and what I ended up doing, was reliving my childhood angst. So my father was not there, and I had this fantasy relationship that if I ever was with my father, life would be great, So I would pick these guys that were like not really available, and if I ever got them into a relationship, life would be great. And I kept replaying that. And if they actually turned around and wanted to be with me, I went, "Whoa, dude, you're pushing, it's too much." And I pushed back. And I'd have these like really bad push-pull relationships, and I didn't understand them. But I couldn't, like you said, I didn't really know myself. So I would be in it, and I wasn't able to see what I was doing. I wasn't able to see the pushback, because to me it made sense. It's like because it was too much intimacy. I couldn't handle the intimacy, so I needed to have that distance to feel comfortable.
Okay, all right.
But what about the theory that opposites attract?
Oh, well, in my research, I discovered that it is true. Opposites attract, but also birds of a feather flock together. So we are attracted to somebody from a combination of opposites and familiar. So we are mostly attracted to people of opposite immune system. So that makes sense on a biological standpoint, because if you have a child, it would have a healthier immune system. So in that sense, there's an opposite. And we complement on our opposites often in characteristics. But we also have to have a certain level of familiarity. And unfortunately, sometimes that familiarity can be family dysfunction. It's like, I know your family. I'm in with it. I know the code words.
Okay.
So and you end up like replaying. So the woman that like never wants to be with an alcoholic because her father was an alcoholic ends up with an alcoholic because of the familiarity.
Wow. I have to imagine that people are really in denial about this because, well, I know I've made bad choices and certainly I had to learn from those, but it took me a lot of years to get to there. Mm-hmm. And part of it was my recovery and other things that I've done. But I mean, do you find a lot of pushback from people as far as, oh no, that's not me and I'm different and it's not like that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll start working with someone and I try to get them to dig a little deeper and then poof, they're gone. So nowadays I try to get my coaching money up front.
Get paid before they kick you out the door.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just kidding.
That's awesome. Well, here's a simple question. I mean, how do you know if you're making the right choice? I mean, isn't some of it a little bit of a gamble?
Well, we were just talking before the podcast that we believe that when relationship ends, it's a failure. And no relationship is ever a failure. You're going to continue to grow.
She hasn't met my ex-wife.
I think you always take something from a past relationship. I know I have in my life. I've always said this is a stepping stone because it's not the person I want yet. I'm working my way towards that person, picking through everyone else. And I'm taking this from this one, this from that one, and I'm realizing what I really want.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and hopefully you're growing.
Look at that.
I'm impressed.
Look at that. And I'm a drummer.
Yeah, there you go. He's in the band. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I told you.
And the thing is, you're going to continue to grow. So even if you pick the most perfect person for you, there's a chance that you're going to grow in opposite directions and the relationship's going to end. And that's perfectly fine. And because we are attracted to opposite, we take some of those pieces of that person and incorporate it into our own selves. When you fall in love, your brain produces nerve growth factors, at least 2 of them. So it increases neuroplasticity. So it's really about personal growth. You're growing as an individual. It's priming you for growth.
Right. What about that person that's never satisfied? They go out with somebody, they start a relationship, they're into it 3-4 weeks, and they're like, you know what, I need something else. And that goes on for another 3 or 4 weeks, and it's like, you know what, it's just not doing it for me. It was great the first 2 weeks, and now I'm bored.
You know what that
I'm
is?
over it.
You know what that is?
What is that?
Fear. Fear is I get these women I work with sometimes that have this list that is huge. And it's like, there's no way that you could ever find a guy that would fit this list. Why does she have this list? Fear. At the end of the day, she's afraid to really get into a relationship. So she builds it. And it's the same thing with guys. If they have to have a woman that's going to be, they have this mental image of like the perfect woman that they're going to have. And she usually is going to be 40 years younger than him and, and adore him and all this stuff. And you're like, dude, you're just not, it's not, that's in the realm of possibilities, but you're not being realistic. And when you're not being
it's
realistic,
a reality check.
Yeah.
It definitely is.
When you're not being realistic, and plus when you're looking at characteristics that are, like sight characteristics, not the personality characteristics, then you know that the person is being unrealistic.
Sure.
So they build these deal breakers on purpose so that they never have to reach that next level of intimacy.
You never do reach that next level, that final level, I should say. You never reach it.
Yes.
It's like, that pot of gold, you're never getting there.
Right.
It's just not realistic. You can't get there.
Right. It's just it's the fear of intimacy that's blocking them from doing that. And of course, they don't realize that. They're like, no, he's out there.
Or it's going so well, you sabotage it.
Yes, that's the other one.
You find things that are really not wrong, but you consider them to be wrong with that relationship because you don't want that commitment.
Well, it's maybe not necessarily the commitment. When you first fall in love, and falling in love lasts about 2 years. So if you know anybody that goes through the pattern of every 2 years having a relationship, that's what's happening. And when your brain deactivates, and when your brain comes back on, part of the brain that deactivates is the ventral medial prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain that judges the person. So when that comes back on, your critical judgment returns. So all of a sudden you notice those things you didn't like about them, or you didn't notice before. They smack their lips when they eat, they snore,
right.
They got bad hair, right. All those things you start noticing. And also parts of your parietal lobe return, and those bring some of your childhood memories. Now the theory is that when those return, you are in a healthy relationship to be able to deal with them, to process them more. But sometimes they come back, and the other part of your brain is called the amygdala, which sounds the alarm. So when that comes back, the anxiety returns. So with all those 3 that are coming back on, it can create a lot of anxiety, and you start going, wait, this person's not right, there's all kinds of problems, and boom, you're out the door.
So it sounds like you may have made the healthy choice. You've got the right person. But then after a period of time, a little bit of that old thinking comes back, and all of a sudden the biker in the band looks kind of good again.
Hey, the band guys always look good. Don't get rid of the band
guys. Is there a process to deal with that? You said obviously in a healthy relationship you would talk about it. Mm-hmm. But it's easier said than done, obviously.
Right.
Is this like counseling worthy, or is this simply practice?
Yeah, it's probably more counseling. It depends on where you are if you're in recovery, in what you've already done. So if you've done a lot of work and you can actually be the witness and see what's happening, you can probably process through some of it. But if you're still not that conscious of a person yet, then yeah, you probably need to have some like more intense therapy.
All right, we're going to take a short break. We're going to be right back with Dawn Masler, and please write those questions in. We're going to talk about dating and addiction. Be right back.
Welcome to Treatment Partners of America, your partner in recovery. Treatment Partners of America is a unique, state-of-the-art substance abuse facility. Our trained professionals first focus on finding the core issues in trauma that lead to addiction, with some of the best doctors, nurses, and behavioral health techs the industry has to offer. We offer personalized one-on-one therapy 5 days a week, raising the bar to a higher level of standards. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, eating disorders, gambling, sex and love addiction, or even relationship addiction, Treatment Partners of America has specialists to treat and to help heal your addiction long-term rather than attempt a temporary 30-day quick fix.
And we're back here on SoberSmash Live with our guest, the Love Biologist, Dawn Masler.
And we'll take a few questions, so keep writing them in. We'll get to them in a minute. But let's talk about sober dating. People that are in recovery, and should they be dating somebody in recovery? And is that a good thing or something you should do the first year maybe or 2 years or, tell us your thoughts.
You already know the first year you should not be dating.
Well, I got to ask you anyway. I got to ask you.
Yes, go out and date your first year.
Love is love.
Well, as I told you about, when you fall in love, it goes chaos in your brain. One of the other things that happens, interestingly...
There you go. It does.
That was a chaos in the brain.
The chaos in the brain. All right, I got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Serotonin, the hormone of happiness.
Yes.
When you fall in love, goes up or down?
I would say it goes up. It's just, I
believe it goes down.
It does go down.
Does it go down?
It goes down to the level of someone with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. That's what makes you so
If it goes
obsessed.
up, you are calmer and more relaxed. If it goes down, you become edgy and all over the place.
And at the same time, your cortisol level skyrockets.
Right.
That's why you can't eat and can't sleep. So think about it. Do you really want somebody early in recovery going through this?
No, absolutely not.
No.
Their serotonin levels already tanked anyway.
Right,
They can't really afford to lose anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. What about dopamine? Does it have an effect on dopamine as well?
Your dopamine increases as you start dating. So that's one of the reasons why it's so appealing to the addict. And the look from across the room, you get that little boost of dopamine, you're like, woo, you start feeling better. And that's why they want to get into a relationship. Unfortunately, it's better to get some healthier forms of dopamine, take a art class or get outdoors, walk in your bare feet in the sand or something.
Okay. I've got to ask you, and this is part of a personal thing, and I've got friends and family members who have experienced this too. What is the attraction to the chase for a man that sometimes even when you catch him, it loses all of its appeal? Why is that chase so important to us?
That's dopamine to you. That gives you the dopamine. And you get dopamine and testosterone. So you feel the virility and then you feel the excitement. And it is all about the chase. So there is a thing called the Coolidge effect. So the Coolidge effect came from President Calvin Coolidge. And the story goes, President Calvin Coolidge was walking on a chicken farm, and his wife was up ahead, and his wife looks over at this rooster, and he's being really amorous with this hen, and she's like, oh, look at that rooster. And the attendant says, yes, ma'am. And she goes, is he like that all the time? Attendant says, yes, ma'am, all day, every day. She goes, oh, you have to tell Mr. Coolidge that, President Coolidge that. So the attendant runs back and he says, President Coolidge, your wife wanted me to point out this rooster. And he looks over and the rooster is having his way with the hen. And he says, is he like that all the time? And the attendant says, yes, sir, all day, every day. And he goes, I see, son. Let me ask you one more question. Is it the same old hen every day? And the attendant says, no, sir. It's a new hen every day. And he goes, run back and tell Mrs. Coolidge that.
Hey, Jones, you have experience with farm animals. Want to tell the sheep story or no? We don't want.
We don't want to go there because
no sheep stories. All right.
Keep it a family show.
I got a question here. We're getting a lot of questions.
The point is that the Coolidge effect is the dopamine skyrockets, and I can take a box of rats and put a male rat in. He'll have his way with all the women, and his dopamine will drop, and he'll pass out in the corner, and they can lick and entice him, do whatever they want. He won't budge unless I put a brand new female in, and then he's up and at him.
No kidding.
Wow. We're talking about men. She went right to rats. I don't know.
Look at that.
We got questions.
I don't think you're far off. We have a bunch of questions. Kay is asking, why do recovering people have such a hard time with relationships?
Because we were pretty much broken to begin with. We started using because we had issues that we were trying to cover up anyway. So once you get rid of the drugs and alcohol, we still have the issues. So it's a healing process that we need to go through before we get into a relationship. And most of us don't wait. I mean, I heard don't have a relationship in the first year. And I was like, oh, but okay, don't fall in love, but
don't fall in love and detox.
Yeah, well, no, I heard don't fall in love. I'm like, of course you're going to let me have sex, right? I mean, I can't give up sex. I just gave up drugs and alcohol. So, of course, I met Swerve and Irvin, who was getting the band back together, who didn't work, but, that's what happened with me. And that ended really badly, but that was my first foray into recovery. And I couldn't stay. I couldn't do the year. Most people can.
I get it.
Yeah, it does make sense. But if you're chasing it just for that, let's call it that high.
Well, it wasn't even the high.
You're not going to get any better results than you did from drugs and alcohol.
It wasn't even the high because at that point my brain was so messed up anyway. It was I needed outside validation because I didn't feel good about myself, and I hadn't bridged the gap with God yet. So I was like in this like desert, and I needed something to hold on to.
I got a good question here from Kate. Just wrote in. What is most important when it comes to effective communication in a relationship?
Effective
communication in a relationship.
Is being willing to, well, first probably run it by your sponsor before you say it. You have to be open, but there are certain things where sometimes we are too honest, where there's a point where it becomes cruel in a relationship. So there's certain things that you need to say to your sponsor and not necessarily in your relationship. So you don't need to drag up your past, or if you're thinking about doing something, you need to talk to your sponsor. You're thinking about having an affair, you don't need to tell your partner, you need to tell your sponsor. Sometimes we think, oh, if I'm really intimate, I can tell him everything. And I have women that will go on a date and just like vomit their whole past, and then the guy disappears, and she's like, "What? I'm trying to be intimate," And that's not intimacy.
Oh, okay, all right. So, addiction or no addiction, just in any relationship, is it just like a judgment call, or is there certain signs of when you should be communicating and when you should probably hold things back a little bit?
Well, you want to be able to talk to your partner and be open, but you don't want to hurt them. So there's except when to do so would injure them or others.
Okay.
And so that's your big key. So if you had told me this, would it bother me? Then maybe I don't need to say it. But like I had trouble in my second marriage, and I kind of was realizing I was getting in trouble, and I didn't say anything, and I had wished I had said something. I don't know if it would have really made the difference, but also I didn't want to injure them too. So At that point, before you're about to make the mistake, then you need to say something. But if you're just kind of, hey, I got this really cute coworker at work now, and I want to talk to you about it. That you don't need to say those type of things. You don't need to say everything that comes to your mind. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. And a lot of guys are very happy to hear they don't have to say what's on their mind all the time.
Yeah, you got to save the good stuff for later.
Well, if you want to make the guys happy, one of the things I found in my research was that for women, sometimes women place too much importance on the male's responsibility, especially for the biggest neurotransmitter that's important for a long-term relationship in women is oxytocin, which is the cuddle hormone. But it happens when you have friends and you are on social media. So women need to actually get out and have friends and community, and they need a lot more actually than men do oftentimes to be happy in their relationship. And oftentimes they put a lot of importance on a guy, or they put a lot of importance on their children, and that's why you get the empty nest, you get the depression after the kids leave and stuff. So it's important for women to get out and have friends, do girls' night, and do that thing, and not put so much pressure on the men. Leave the poor guy alone.
Well, that's funny because guys are more apt to go out with their friends and do things, go golfing or go bowling, whatever they do. They're more apt to do that, and women actually need that more.
Women need it more.
Wow.
And your predominant neurotransmitter in long-term relationships is testosterone. So when you go out with the boys, that helps boost your testosterone a little bit. So when you do healthy competition, when you do sports, if you drive a red car, all those type of things, it boosts it up a little bit.
I think if the wind's blowing it. We got another question here from JK. She wants to know what are the key components to maintaining a healthy relationship?
Okay. So we already talked about oxytocin, those neurotransmitters, testosterone for him. So the guy needs to get some wins. Nagging drops his testosterone. So there you go. Don't nag.
Do women nag?
No, I don't know.
I don't know about that.
I'm sorry.
Is that wrong to say? I don't know.
I mean,
The idea that you did,
wrong to say? I don't know.
I'm so jealous that you
I don't know
don't.
about that.
I'm so jealous that you don't know that.
Hold on. Whoop. News alert.
asking for support is great. And,
Yes.
and when he does stuff for you, saying thank you is like boosts up his testosterone.
Absolutely. Everyone likes to be rewarded
Yes.
for something.
But one of the biggest thing for long-term relationship is actually dopamine. So doing new and novel things together is really important. So the date nights and, creating new memories and having vacations and stuff together is really important. And sometimes we get, because we like the security of a relationship, we stop doing the new and novel things and we get caught in a rut. And then sometimes, the relationship gets stale and people start going, I wonder if there's anything else out there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your book a little bit. Men Chase, Women Choose.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you write this?
Because once I wrote I started working with other women's groups after I wrote The Broken Picker Fixer, and they kept asking me questions about, well, how does love work? And, what are the rules? And how long should I wait to have sex? And how does that all work? So I was like, well, I'm a biologist. I have access to all the peer-reviewed research in the world. I can figure this out. Little did I know it would take me 5 years because it was a lot more complicated than I thought.
Wow.
Now, is this where you introduce, or maybe that was probably in your first book, The Broken Picker Fixer, where you talked about the 4 phases of love?
The 4 phases is Men Chase, Women Choose. That's the latest one.
Oh, that's the latest one, the
Yeah,
4
so
phases.
the subtitle is The Neurotrans of Meeting, Dating, Losing Your Mind, and Finding True Love. And that's the 4 phases. So meeting is attraction. Dating is where you build up the neurotransmitters to fall in love. Losing your mind is when you fall in love. I talked about the deactivations. And then true love is when your brain comes back. And that's where love changes from a feeling, more of a feeling, because that's what we always think this love is. And it actually turns into a practice. So once you go past the 2 years, you have to start practicing love. And we can see it now in the prefrontal cortex. Love now shares neural activity with things like compassion, empathy, brotherly love. It becomes a much higher love as you stay in a relationship, and you become a better person.
Got a question here. John wants to know how many dates does it become when you're an item, when you're dating someone?
there is no number of dates. It's only once you decide to be mutually exclusive, and the man should ask, would you be in a mutually exclusive relationship with me?
Whoa. Why should a man ask?
Because
I've always had.
I'm curious.
I've always had
dum.
the woman ask that.
No,
Always.
no, the woman sets the...
I've always had that. Like, don't you think we should be exclusive at this
Oh,
point?
that's not asking.
And that's like after the appetizer. No,
That-
just kidding. But that does
As she picks you up at the door.
exactly. So there's no set time.
The
It's
woman
just way
sets
you're
the
feeling.
standard. The woman sets the standards as I want to be in a mutually exclusive relationship, and then usually the guy needs to ask. The reason why the guy needs to ask is because once he asks,
Right.
it actually drops his testosterone, and when it drops his testosterone, it appears to be the precipitating factor for him to fall in love.
Wow.
Okay, I'm confused.
So next
No,
time
but I
you go out
understand
on
what
a
you're saying.
date, it's like second or third date. You feel it. You need to ask it.
Well, I'm already in a relationship.
Well,
I'm
just
good.
saying.
But
Yeah,
let me
you're
ask-
probably a bad example.
I am a bad example.
You're a bad example of that.
No, because I'm in a relationship now where we've been together for we've known each other for 30-something years, but we've been together for the last of 5 years. She had to move back to New York. She moved back down, but my favorite thing is sitting on the sofa laughing with her at the end of the day. At what point? Where are we at with that?
You're in long
That's my
term-
favorite thing in the world is to sit and laugh with her and talk about our days, and make fun of people. Those kind of things together.
You're what I call in true love. True love meaning that you're full.
Wow. Look at that.
I want.
Jonesy.
Give me something.
I'll
want.
give you something there,
Oh, I got booze. That's true love.
That's true love. That's because after 2 years, your brain comes back. So now you're operating on your full brain. That's why I call it true love. You're not under an illusion anymore of the activations and their neurotransmitters come back into harmony and homeostasis.
Well, I like the four phases. I like that: attraction, dating, falling in love, and true love. But it doesn't leave room for the one thing that we all dream about, which is that love at first sight moment.
There is no such thing as love at first sight.
Ooh.
Dum dum dum. Let me tell you about love at first sight. So love at first sight is attraction is caused by norepinephrine, which is a fight or flight response, and that's that like rapid heartbeat, sweaty palms. And the problem is people will think it's love at first sight, and I did this all the time. I would walk in the room and I'd check the eye and went, "That's him."
That's what you were talking
Yeah.
about.
Absolutely.
Him all the time.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I'd make a beeline to him. I don't care what your name is. Let's just go. And we go right into the bed, and I fall in love because, if I have an orgasm, I produce the oxytocin and I'm excited. I got the dopamine. Boom, I'm in love. I don't even know who this person is. And he doesn't fall in love that way. So now I've got a problem. And we end up, the problem is also with norepinephrine is fight or flight response. It ends quickly. So in order to get the same feeling again, you have to be in a drama-filled relationship. So you on again, off again, drama-filled. So my Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee are my poster child of this. They met and married within 96 hours. And their on again, off again relationship lasted for about 3 years. In the last 4 months, Tommy Lee spent in the county jail for domestic violence. So those are the ones you get into for love at first sight.
I got another question here from Jen. She wants to know, how do you know if you're in love or you're just addicted to how the person makes you feel?
It's about the same thing. Neurologically speaking, it's about the same thing. So yeah, I mean, when your serotonin level drops and you can't sleep, you can't eat, you're kind of in love. But people want to know, and I joke and I say it half joking, they want to know it's the real thing. And I don't think there's any real thing. Like they're looking for safety. They're looking for security when they say, this has got to be the one. And every relationship is risky. And love is about risk. You're becoming more intimate. You're opening yourself up to somebody else. So you have to be willing to take the risk. What is that song? You can't, if I hadn't done it, I couldn't go to the dance or something like that. You have to be able to go to the dance. If you want to dance, you're going to have to show up.
That's true.
That's kind of like, my grandfather and other people, when he used to talk about relationships, it was always like, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of. If I was selling a car and I said that, I could not sell that car.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot of work and everything. I mean, we're all looking for those wonderful and butterflies forever, but I mean, is it really a lot of work? Should it be that much work?
No, it should not be a lot of work. And if it becomes a lot of work, then something should change. Because you're fighting against. I'm a spiritual person. I believe that we are meant to be happy, joyous, and free. And if you're not feeling happy, joyous, and free, that means that you're being pushed in a different direction. So either you can go nicely and flow even lovingly, or you can be dragged kicking and screaming. And as somebody in recovery, I often get dragged kicking and screaming with my nails still caught in whatever I wanted, and that's when you go, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
We got a question from Melissa. She wants to know, when you get sober and you are getting to know who you are, how do you know you are ready to even consider a relationship?
Oh, that's a great question.
It is good question, Melissa.
It's a great question. Oftentimes it's probably best to get a sponsor first. What is that old joke? First you get a plant, and if the plant lives, then you might be ready for a relationship. But oftentimes it's great to have a sponsor. A sponsor will kind of be able to guide you, to tell you if you're really ready. But if you're like walking into a meeting and you're scanning the place looking for him, you're not ready. You're not ready. And usually what happens is that they say it happens when you're not looking, is because when you're comfortable with yourself, that person that shows up that is the right for you, and you're not looking for them. Because when you're actively looking, you're kind of like, I almost think of it as a scientist, I think of it as a chemical reaction, and there's certain chemicals or there's certain elements that have an electron, and they're trying to always grab onto somebody else, and that's what I think what we are. We're like reactive, like we're chlorine atom trying to grab onto something, and you want to be a noble gas to just float around.
Free flow.
Exactly, and be comfortable with yourself. But you were supposed to ask me a question.
We are.
That was the question.
Tell us about your new test.
Yes, very good.
Oh,
I know about it.
that one.
I have it right here. I'm getting to it.
Oh, okay.
So tell us about your new test.
So as I'm doing the research, I discovered that love and commitment has a physiological effect on men. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be cool if I could do a test to see if a man was loving and committed in a relationship. So I went out to California and we did some lab work, and we found the biomarker. So I'm in the process of creating a test. It would be like an instant test, like a pregnancy test, that a man could take to show a woman that he is in love and committed.
Wow.
Oh, terrific. Hey, can I take you out to dinner? Let me poke your finger first.
Instant test, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it wouldn't work on the first date, but like you're in a relationship for 5 years, and maybe she's having some doubts or something, and you can, instead of Valentine's Day, you can give her candy and go, hey, here's a test just to show you that you're the only one for me. I just want to let you know I only have eyes for you.
That's scary.
That takes a lot of the questions that you're always thinking, but I think you want to keep thinking, no?
What?
Everyone, you don't want to know every single thing about that person. A little...
You kind of dilutes the romance.
Yeah, a little mystery is always good.
No, for a woman to know that the guy is loving and committed to him.
Well, is that being a little insecure on a woman's behalf at that moment sometimes?
Well, I'll tell you what. The research shows... shows that the satisfaction level will continue to drop as a relationship goes on. So oftentimes, if you've got pregnancy in there, you've got women getting older. So there is a certain amount of security that can crop up. At the 10-year, there's this most dissatisfaction in any relationship. It starts to come back up again. But if you're in that 10-year mark, maybe this is a great thing to have.
I think if you treat the woman like the goddess she is every day of her life, she'll never question it.
Your wife is listening, isn't she?
She must be.
Yeah, okay.
All right. But it also, you can also use it for women. Can also use it before she becomes sexual with a guy, to make sure that he's really if he's really is committed before they have sex, because that's when she takes the biggest risk.
But you said not to do it on the first date. Okay, all right. Now I'm following.
Okay.
All right, now I know.
Are you having sex on the first date too?
Well, no, not now. I mean, because I don't, I'm going to be quiet now. Scott, why don't you talk?
You've been a great guest. We have so many people writing in that we can't even get to all these questions today, but we'd love to have you back again.
I would love to.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure we put the books up on our website, and definitely Dawn's contact information if you want to get in touch with her. And you've been great.
Thank you.
Can talk
Thank
to
you
you
for
for
having
all
me.
day here.
Dawn, thanks a lot. Is there anything you'd like to say, everybody, kind of one final message?
Oh, I am doing a workshop in
Go.
Fort Lauderdale on June 12th and the 19th. It's on my website at dawnmasler.com/events.
Okay.
You can sign up for it. It's a reparative workshop for people that are attracted to the wrong people.
A lot of people need that. We got it all figured out, but a lot of people out there need that. So.
Absolutely. Great. You've been SoberSmash. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sober Smash.